Showtime, folks.
Ben Vereen and Roy Scheider in a flashy musical number from All That Jazz, for me, is a refreshing change of pace from an American film industry that I think seems to be catering to teenagers with little robots and all kinds of surfboard pictures. All That Jazz is for adults. It's a musical show business autobiography by Bob Fosse, who's choreographed and directed such Broadway musicals as Dancin', Pippin, and Chicago. On film, he's directed Cabaret and Lenny. Fosse suffered a near-fatal heart attack a few years ago, and that apparently got him thinking some cosmic thoughts about the meaning of it all. All That Jazz is then Bob Fosse's personal story. Actor Roy Scheider plays Fosse's alter ego Joe Gideon, a hard-driving show business director who's disillusioned with the way he uses actresses and dancers from his shows and the way they try to use him.
It's the
You have really got something special.
All right. I want so to be a movie star.
Oh?
Ever since I was a little kid, I wanted to see my face on the screen, 40 feet wide.
Oh, yeah?
I have always depended on the kindness of strangers. You're looking at my nose, aren't you?
Huh?
It's crooked. It goes to the left, see? I mean, like I could always have that fixed, like that. Do you think I could be?
Huh?
You know, a movie star, I mean. In the movies.
Well, I don't know anybody that could answer that question. It's a very freaky business, you know?
Yeah, I know all about that, but like, I want to know what you think. Do you think I could be a movie star?
No.
He's been through that scene before. Joe Gideon hates those temptations of the flesh. He's only happy, it seems, when he's creating a dance. So, he has a lot of ups and downs in his life. He constantly worries about his own death during the film, and even in a musical dream sequence hosted by Ben Vereen.
There goes his baby with someone new. She sure looks happy. I sure am blue. He sure is blue. 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 I sure am blue.
A very entertaining musical number, just the sort of thing we expect from Bob Fosse. Now, I know a lot of people are going to go see All That Jazz and wonder what it's all about. It seems to me that what Fosse has done is sort of write his own obituary on film, the obituary of a creative man who's afraid his work just might be trivial. Joe suffers a heart attack and surgery in the movie, and he seems to view the attack as some kind of ultimate punishment for all those times he didn't do his best. At the same time, it's very clear that Joe Gideon and Bob Fosse both love dance, love to watch it, and best of all, they love to create it. So for me, All That Jazz is a fresh film. I found it very entertaining.
I found the dance numbers really entertaining. I have a funny reaction to this film. I really love the choreography. There's a lot of energy, a lot of inventiveness there. I didn't like the story of the guy's life. I found it very confused. It's kind of fragmented in a Fellini sort of way. I might get back to that in a second. And he's talking to the woman in white who wanders through the film. He's talking to her about his fears, about his life, and so forth. I couldn't follow it. I couldn't understand it. And I walked out of the theater behind a woman who said, you know, when you go to a musical at holiday time, you don't really expect to see open heart surgery. I think I kind of understand what she was talking about.
So you like the dance and you don't like the story. And you know, that's a common reaction to the picture. And unfortunately, I think that that's exactly what this guy intended, who made the picture, Bob Fosse. He likes the dance and he doesn't like the story. And the story for him is his own life when he isn't creating dance. So I think that the very reaction you had is sort of the proper reaction. And it's a common story. It's not just a show business story. It's a story of people, for professional people, who manage their creative lives very well, and their personal lives go to pot. And I think that he does that very well, Roger.
Well, but there's a funny thing that I kept thinking when I saw the movie. There's a movie called 8½ by Fellini that you know about.
One
it's
of the
very
great
famous,
films.
one of the great films from the 60s, about a movie director who's unsatisfied with his life, who's caught between his wife and his mistress, who is badgered all day long by his backers about a project that he can't complete, who's worried about death, and who always talks to this woman in white who is his muse or his angel of death. I think it's kind of ironic. Bob Fosse makes a movie about his own life, and it turns out to be Fellini's life.
So what are you saying? It's not as good as 8½? I agree with you. It's not as good as 8½, but what's up on the screen I found very entertaining.
Okay. Disagreement? Move right along. We had a big split and a major disagreement on All That Jazz about the dying days of a Broadway choreographer. Gene liked its sharp-edged cynicism and dancing. He gives it a yes. I thought it was self-indulgent and chaotically organized, and I vote no.
Bob Fosse's Star 80 is a disturbing and powerful new film about the murdered Playboy playmate Dorothy Stratton, killed by her husband, a small-time hustler named Paul Snider, after Stratton began an affair with Hollywood director Peter Bogdanovich. This is a story about a rage a person can feel, the rage that Paul Snider feels having been cut out of Dorothy's life in the fast lane. Toward the end of the film, in one of its many sad scenes, Dorothy Stratton visits her husband in his apartment. We already know that this is the place where in a few minutes he's going to kill her and then kill himself with a shotgun.
I don't think I want to go on living without you. I bought a gun.
Oh, Paul.
Now we continue with my list of the 10 best films of the year with a very unpleasant but well-made motion picture called Star 80, the dramatization of the life and death of Playboy playmate Dorothy Stratton, who was murdered in 1980 by her two-bit hustler husband after she tried to dump him after she became Playmate of the Year and began a love affair with film director Peter Bogdanovich. Mariel Hemingway plays Dorothy, Cliff Robertson is Playboy publisher Hugh Hefner, and Eric Roberts really walks away with this movie as the creepy husband Paul Snider, so obsequious when he meets his idol Hefner at a party at the Playboy Mansion West.
If a man has a right to find God in his own way, he has a right to go to the devil in his own way. Here's another. Descriptions of murder, which we consider a crime, are acceptable in art and literature, but descriptions of sex are prohibited. Our society has put hate above love, favored killing over living. Right?
Pretty close. But I think I said favored death over life.
What? I don't understand. What?
He's quoting me. Old ones at that.
That's great stuff. Fine piece of work. God, I feel Hefner and I are old friends.
Bobo. Bobo, I want you to meet Dorothy Stratton.
Hi.
Bobo. Bobo Weller. I've still got your centerfold on my wall.
Oh, wow.
Your favorite book is The Height Report, like Rod Stewart, Linda Ronstadt, and Boz Scaggs, right?
Oh, wow.
I know that bod anyway.
What's your name?
Snyder.
Dorothy?
Paul.
That is one of the weirdest scenes I have ever seen. I mean, it's almost comic, except there is this overlay of death there, a strange, strange character. Star 80 focuses more on the husband than on Dorothy, and it's a gripping portrait of a kid with his values out of whack, a kid so desperate to become a star. And who is that kid? Well, the surprise in Star 80 is that it's both Dorothy and her husband, and they both end up dying because of their dreams. This is one of those time capsule movies, I think, that 100 years from now is going to have a lot to say about these times in which we live. Star 80 is an unpleasant film, yes, but it is a finely made one.
It is a well-made film, and it was pretty close to making my top 10. It didn't quite get into the top 10, but I admire it. And you know, it has the same problem, if you will, and it's an insoluble problem, as In Cold Blood, which is we know the ending. We know everybody's going to die. We know that at the beginning, and so everything has this overlay of sadness and poignancy, even the high points. So it is a depressing movie, and it is a good one, too.
Okay. Now it's time for our video pick of the week, and as a companion piece to the Hugh Hefner documentary we praised earlier on this show, I'd like to recommend a darker film, Star 80, directed by the late, great Bob Fosse. It's a docudrama based on the sad story of murdered Playboy playmate Dorothy Stratton. In his documentary, Hugh Hefner says that her Playboy experience was irrelevant to her murder, that she was simply a victim of a love triangle involving director Peter Bogdanovich and Stratton's creepy hustler husband, Paul Snider, who ultimately killed her and then killed himself. That may be true, but director Fosse sees a world of artifice and full glamour as partially responsible for the unhinging of Snider's unstable personality.
Do you know who reads Playboy?
No, tell me.
Movie producers, directors, agents, TV people. The people who produce Charlie's Angels read Playboy. I have this feeling about Dorothy, this hunch that she's going to be a big star.
Eric Roberts is absolutely brilliant as Paul Snider. It's very difficult to make us care at all about such a creep, and it's one of the best performances I've ever seen. Mariel Hemingway plays Dorothy Stratton, and here is a true-life thriller that is as mesmerizing as any of the great crime films in film history. Star 80 is rated R. It is extremely violent and recommended only for adults.
And one of my favorite non-traditional musicals is now on DVD. Director-choreographer Bob Fosse was a prime force in such works as Damn Yankees, Cabaret, Sweet Charity, and the original stage production of Chicago, and he told his own story in the Fellini-esque All That Jazz. The 1979 film received multiple Oscar nominations, including a Best Actor nod for Roy Scheider as Joe Gideon, a hard-smoking, pill-popping, egomaniacal Broadway genius. Fosse's trademark choreography is on display in the great opening audition number. The DVD also includes some all-too-brief glimpses of the real late Bob Fosse at work.
People are always asking me if I've ever been wrong about movies. Well, probably lots of times, but the other night I was looking at All That Jazz, and I was wrong to give it a negative review. I said it was a rip-off of Fellini's 8.5, but it's not, and I was wrong.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, and on DVD it really springs to life, the colors, the music, and the performances.
And as a companion piece to the Hugh Hefner documentary we praised earlier on this show.
Now, some people admire Hefner and others hate him, but I think that when the history of 20th century social change is written, his Playboy may turn out to have been the most influential magazine of our times in terms of the change that it actually brought into people's lives. A new documentary named Hugh Hefner, Once Upon a Time, records Hefner's life from his beginning as the son of devout Methodists in Chicago to his emergence as the definitive swinging bachelor playboy. I was especially interested in the archival material from his earliest days, which indicates that in one sense or another, Hefner was publishing Playboy almost from the cradle.
As editor of the College Humor magazine, he introduced a new feature he called Co-Ed of the Month.
One of the keys to Hefner's image was the famous Playboy Mansion, first in Chicago, then in Los Angeles, where the parties never seemed to stop.
I built up a swimming pool inside with an underwater bar, and that was the house with the rotating, vibrating bed. And it was a house without any secret panels, but I added some because I thought it reminded me of the old houses in the Boris Karloff movies that I'd seen when I was a boy.
There was always a strong moralistic streak in Hefner, who wrote his almost endless Playboy philosophy in response to those who attacked his magazine.
You don't seem to understand that the deeds that men are being moved to by Playboy and the general thrust of our move towards a less repressive society is a healthier attitude towards sex.
Playboy has been around almost 40 years now, and Hefner has settled down. In fact, the documentary concludes with idyllic footage of the domestic scene at the mansion, where Hef and his second wife, Playmate of the Year, Kimberly Conrad, are raising their 2 young children. Hugh Hefner, Once Upon a Time, does cover some of the darker chapters of the Playboy saga, including the murder of playmate Dorothy Stratton and the suicide of Hefner's own trusted assistant. But basically, this is an authorized biography, Hefner's own statement about where he came from and who he is and what he thinks it all means. I found it very interesting on that level as a personal statement from a man who has had a significant impact on his time.
Well, I found it fascinating, too, and I think that there was sort of a filmmaker's approach to this material, and it has to do with how the film opens and how it closes. And that is, it opens with him in this family where, this uptight family, where kissing is forbidden because it's a way of communicating disease.
Germs, yeah.
So that keeps people apart. And then he gets rejected in high school, I think it is, or at college he gets rejected.
High school.
And he wants to escape from the real world. So he has this idea of a magazine that he started early on. And in this world that he creates, young boys, adolescents like himself, can have the date they want at a safe distance. It seems so logical. And then, jumping ahead to the end of the movie, where he's playing on the mansion, we see him playing with this kid. We see a warmer, more touchy-feely family. And so the film, I think, in the most amazing life to pick, Hugh Hefner, the film argues for a warmer, closer, more hands-on family.
It's a movie in favor of family values, and it stars the man who had the longest adolescence in history, 45 years. To me, the key is, at the beginning, when he reinvents himself in high school as Hef and starts drawing cartoons and so forth, he creates this image of himself as the kid who, as he says, threw all the parties, had all the fun, set up all the games, and he continued to do that for a lot of people for a very long time, until finally he realized it was time for him to start leading his own life. It's very interesting in the movie that he never really participated in his own parties. They said there was always a great buffet, but Hefner never ate.
The other thing I think it shows us, and I think we know this to be true from our own experience, a personality that is blunted in some way or suffers some kind of trauma or shock early on will spin itself out into an amazing web. And so it was this early life of him that causes this grand life with, peaks and valleys.
The empire, yeah.
If he hadn't had the parents that he had, he would have he would have been a reader, not a publisher.
Okay.
Makes you think you've got the right to say a word like that in a public place.
I didn't do it, man. I just said it.
The object of their attention there on roller skates was Mariel Hemingway as the late Playboy model Dorothy Stratton, enjoying one of the happier moments from her short, tragic life. It's in a scene from Star 80, one of 4 new movies we'll be reviewing on this edition of Sneak Previews. I'm Jeffrey Lyons.
And I'm Neil Gabler. In addition to Star 80, which I'm still numb from, we'll have an interview with the film star Mariel Hemingway, Star 80. And it's the harrowing, true-life account of how and why 1980 Playboy Playmate of the Year, Dorothy Stratton, was murdered. Stratton, played by Mariel Hemingway, was a shy, naive teenager when she was swept off her feet by a fast-talking, small-time hustler named Paul Snyder. Snyder convinces her that he can make her a star, and he starts by pressuring her into posing for nude photographs that he sends to Playboy magazine. In this scene, Snyder begs Dorothy's mother to give her consent and let Dorothy go to California for an audition with Playboy chief Hugh Hefner.
She wants to go.
I'm slowly beginning to get the idea that you want her to go. That leaves me, her mother.
Together, we could be somebody. People would know who we are. People would know our names. People would treat us that special way, the way they treat stars. People would, that way, walk into a restaurant, people...
That was Eric Roberts, and I think he's going to be a very strong contender for the Best Actor Oscar. Now, Snyder ignores Mrs. Stratton, forges her signature on Playboy's consent form, and sends Dorothy out to California anyway, not realizing that he's pushing Dorothy into a new world where he's not wanted. And here, out at the Playboy mansion, Dorothy is welcomed by Hugh Hefner.
Wanting to have this talk with you for a while, but I guess we've been keeping you pretty busy.
I'll say.
Coffee for Miss Stratton.
Yes, sir.
Dorothy, it's going to take a couple of weeks or so to come to a decision on this thing, etc.
Oh, I understand.
Playboy is a very special magazine, Dorothy. There's no other magazine like it. All the writers, editors, photographers, all the girls, etc. We all have a very special relationship. It's not like any other magazine. We're all like a, well, we're just like a family.
A family. It's like having a family.
The whole magazine is like having a family.
The whole magazine is like having a family.
I know a lot of people say that's a lot of bull, but that's how I think of it.
And we all know you can buy Hef's family album each month on the newsstand. Now, I only think it's fair to warn you that Star 80, which I love, is not an enjoyable movie. It's not going to make you feel good. If you're like me, it's probably going to disturb and horrify you. Star 80 isn't really about Dorothy Stratton. It's about her husband, Paul, a pathetic loser who doesn't have enough flair to succeed in a world where style means everything. He's a terrifying creep, but Star 80 gets you inside his skin, understanding his outrage at the style-conscious snobs who exclude him. And that's largely because Eric Roberts, who plays Paul, is absolutely astonishing, full of menace and fury. Star 80 is a powerful look at a desperate victim of the American dream. You won't enjoy it, but I guarantee you're going to be shaken by it.
I walked out of this movie and I thought about it and I hated myself for thinking about it, and then a few days later more scenes kept coming back to me. It's like reading the details of a lurid murder which fascinates you despite yourself. That's why this picture played upon me.
This film is still rattling me. I still think about it. It sort of haunts me, and I think a lot of people are going to go to this film and absolutely hate it because they're not going to like the way the movie makes them feel. It makes you feel disturbed.
It's a Beauty and the Beast story. It's about growing up. It's about somebody who got into the fast lane and then didn't understand that if you can't move fast enough in that business, you're dropped off. And that's where the tragedy begins.
And the thing is, I think the reason, again, why people may try and put some distance between themselves and this movie is because Bob Fosse, who directed this film, who also directed Lenny and Cabaret and all that jazz, makes you identify with this maniac, Paul Snider, who we saw in the first clip.
And as he did in those earlier films, he shows both sides of the business, the glitter and the sleaze that goes with it. So you walk out of this film absolutely shattered.
And you resent the fact that he's made you identify with that character. You resent the fact that you have the same kinds of frustrations that this character has.
It's horrifying.
Well, I think Star 80 is going to stir plenty of controversy, but I can't imagine there's going to be much disagreement over the quality of the performances in the movie. Jeffrey spoke with one of the picture stars, Mariel Hemingway, and he asked her if she studied the real Dorothy Stratton.
I really didn't study her that closely. I tried to stay away from doing that. I feel as though I did the character as much as I could see from the script that I was reading, and from what knowledge I had of her, I felt I portrayed that as, and from what Bob wanted. Because, I mean, it really is a story. I really took it away from the idea. I had to, for my own sanity and for my own ability to do the role well, I had to not think of her as a having lived person.
Eric Roberts, as your husband in Star 80, is the incarnation of evil. Was it difficult working with somebody playing this kind of a horrible character?
It was I mean, it was difficult in the sense of, sure, yes, he does kill her and all that horrible stuff, but he also fell in love with her, and I think the relationship they had in Vancouver was very much, they fell in love, and he may have been evil, but I don't think he was somebody you didn't have sympathy for. Things will change for you.
What, you mean maybe I'll grow up to be a big movie director? Or own a big magazine? Is that what you mean? Maybe then I could get you back. Is that what you're saying? Sit down.
Oh, he's chilling. It's a shattering film. We agree that Star 80, about slain Playboy model Dorothy Stratton, is one of the most powerful films of the year. And Eric Roberts' performance deserves an Oscar nomination. 2 yes votes.
Oh, I think that is one of the best films of the year, Star 80.
Like show business, like no business I know. Everything about it is appealing. Everything the traffic will allow.